أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم اللهم صل والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين واللعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المجيد وفرقان الحميد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن ناشئة الليل هي أشد وطئا وأقوم قيلا إنا لك في النهار سبحا طويلا واذكر اسم ربك وتبتل إليه تبتيلا رب المشرق والمغرب لا إله إلا هو فاتخذه وكيلا واصبر على ما يقولون واهجرهم هجرا جميلا آمنا بالله وصدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Continuing on our discussion on Surah Muzzammil, the second section is ayah number 6 to 10, of which we have discussed a few aspects, and we will continue inshallah. Allah says, starting Surah ayah number 6, surely the rising by the night is the firmest way to tread and the best corrective of speech. Surely you have in the daytime a long occupation, and remember the name of your Lord and devote yourself to Him with exclusive devotion. The Lord of the East and the West, there is no entity worthy of worship except for Him, therefore take Him for a protector. And bear patiently with what they say, and avoid them with a becoming avoidance. Surah Muzzammil, as we know, is one of the two surahs that came down, was revealed to Rasulullah at the time when he began, after which he began the open invitation in Makkah. And the emphasis has been on to rise in the night and adopt Salatul Layl and recitation of the Quran, and rise and undertake a great responsibility which will require self-building for himself and a spiritual heart, and in which the night worship has been emphasized, the program for self-building within the Quran. It is within the Quran that how to make yourself better, and which it strengthens your faith, resolve, taqwa, and training of the soul. The Quran should not be considered as any other book. Rather, it needs to be recited in the manner as it ought to be recited. The requirements of the Quran. Here, just as a note, we all know that we all respect the Quran. Every Muslim respects the Quran in his own way. We do not keep any books over it. We do not put any weight over it. We do not throw it around. But that is not what this ayah means here. That is not the only thing on how to respect the Quran. The Quran here, when it says should not be considered as any other book, means that it should not be kept on the shelf just for the sake of it. It is not a book that should not be understood. It is one book that is the most read in the world, yet the most not understood in the world. And therefore, understanding what the Quran's message is more important than everything else. So last time, in continuation of our discussion, we said that there were 5 commands that Allah gave, specific 5 commands to Rasulullah of what to do after having emphasized the night worship. And these were, the first is to remember Allah, zikr of Allah, which is, when we will go through it very quickly inshallah. Then the second is exclusive devotion to Allah. Third is protection in Allah. Fourth is patience against the enemies. And fifth is avoiding the enemies. Now last time we also discussed that zikr of Allah is not only the remembrance through the tongue, and it has many stages, and the 3 stages that we discussed is to remember the name of Allah, remembering Him through the words, the tasbih that we do, and the zikr that we do with our tongue. And the second level is to have His remembrance of His pure essence within ourselves. Whatever we do, we remember Him. When we get our rizq, when we get something good, we remember Him, that He is the one who sent it. When there is something that is not right, then we have to remember Him, that He is trying to give us a message and a trial to us because He found us worthy for that trial. Allah sends khair only, and that remembrance is very important. And the third level is to go deep and delve deep into His divinity, and that is what the study of Irfan is. Whilst the second part we discussed last time was the exclusive devotion to Allah, in which the best way to understand is the word tabattala ilayhi tabtila, meaning devoting oneself exclusively for Allah. And the word emanates into a noun by the word Batul, in which Janabe Maryam, the mother of Isa, is also known as Batul because she left everything else only for the worship of Allah. Whilst at the same time, Janabe Fatimatu Zahra salawatullahi wa salam alayha is also known as Batul, meaning she also left everything for exclusive devotion to Allah. And therefore the ulamas explain that we should not misunderstand what this particular word means. It does not mean that we cut off socially from everyone. No, Islam does not have monasticism like Rasulullah says. Islam does not allow us to cut ourselves off and go and sit in the mountains with one leg up or one hand up, and all those the things that is not the meaning of cutting off everything. What it means is what Janab's Fatima has taught us, that being a family person, being a mother, being a wife, and being a daughter, yet she was one whose total devotion even in those duties was for Allah. So whatever we do, we have to devote ourselves to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now the ayah that comes next is the ayah number 9, in which Allah speaks about protection in Allah. And this command, this is the third command, He says, Rabbul Mashriqi wal Maghrib, La ilaha illa huwa fattakhizhu wakila. The Lord of East and West. There is no entity worthy of worship except Him. Therefore take Him as a protector. Hasbunallahu wa ni'mal wakil, we say. In Fajr dua also we say this. This wakalat is protection, that, Ya Allah, I have given myself to you totally for your protection. But do we really mean it? We have to understand this word. And it says that after realizing, Allama explains that after realizing the level of the dhikr, remembrance of Allah, and showing exclusive devotion to Him, we reach a level of complete reliance on Him. That whatever happens, Allah is my wakil. Whatever things that I want to do is Allah is my wakil. Whatever happens to me, Allah is my wakil. That is total reliance on Him. And it is only then that we place our complete trust on Him. There is not only reliance, but there is trust that whatever is coming from Him is khair only, and it is beneficial to me only. Because for whatever we have, or whatever we get, or whatever we give, Allah is not benefiting anything out of that. If the entire universe stops worshipping Allah, there is not going to be an atom's difference in Allah's azamat and His highness. But what it means is, it is returning back to us when we are worshipping and obedient to Allah's commands. It is for our good. So this is very important, and then it says that the realization is achieved. When we rely, when we have total reliance and trust in Allah, there is a realization that is achieved by this. And what is that realization? that Allah is my Rabb, Allah is my maintainer, Allah is one who is everything for whatever I have or whatever I don't have. And that trust and reliance will give us that realization that Allah is only for doing whatever He is doing in His mashiat, in His wisdom, is for my good, for the good of His creation only. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. When we see this verse, it begins with Rabbul Mashriqi wal Maghrib, Lord of the East and West. It does not mean that He is not the Lord of the North and the South or other planets and all that in the universe. What this verse means is a way of saying He is the Lord of everything. Whether you look on this side or you look on that side, does not matter. He is the Lord and maintainer, the Rabb of everything that is there in the universe. Whether it is the planets, whether it is the animals, whether it is the non-living things, or whether it is human beings. He is the maintainer and the Rabb, and that His governance, rule and dominion is upon all. In Dua Kumail, like we say, La yumkinul firaru min hukumatik. There is no way to escape your dominion. That is the dominion that we are talking about. Like the other time, we also discussed the hadith of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein when he said that if you feel like sinning, at least go out from the dominion of Allah and do it, so that He cannot see you, which is also not possible. Wherever we are, it is still the dominion of Allah, and it is still His rububiyyat, and we are still His slave and servant. And indeed, He is the only entity worthy of worship. Anything else that we worship other than Him is not worthy, because it's a creation either of His or a creation from His creation. There is no other way. Anything that we look at, either it is a creation of Allah or it is a creation of the creatures of Allah. But it cannot be Allah. So therefore, He is the only one worthy of worship. And in reality, this phrase, Allama says, exemplifies complete reliance. When I realize that rububiyyat of Allah, there is going to automatically come that reliance and trust in Allah. And then he asks a question: how is it possible for a person not to rely upon Allah and not to entrust all of his affairs to Him, while one sees every moment in his life that in the world of creation there is no ruler, no sovereign, no granter of needs, no nurturer other than Him who deserves to be worshipped? Who can be worshipped? Who is there? When we look at ourselves, when we look at the world around us, we realize Allah and His creation, Him being the creator and Him being the one who is maintaining the entire creation. For example, then there is a verse in the Quran also in Surah Fatir that speaks about that when you look at how the day becomes the night and how the night becomes the day, it is not all of a sudden. It gradually becomes dark and it gradually becomes light in the morning, because had it been that, like for example, we have the midday sun and it was supposed to come out at 6 o'clock in the morning, it would have harmed us. And therefore it is something that we have to understand and realize how Allah maintains every aspect of it. When we look internally ourselves, and like Amir al-Mu'mineen says, do you consider yourself to be a germ of insignificant value? There is an entire universe inside you. And when we look at this, and today doctors, science, medicine has brought this up so well, that when we look at our own body functions, we see there are so many functions that are going on inside us, even without us realizing and without even appreciating what Allah has given us. It is only when we lose something that we come to that realization that how we did not appreciate what Allah had given us. So this is something that we have to bring to realization. And again, he emphasizes the meaning of the word Rabbul Mashriq wal Maghrib does not mean that it is east and west only, it means everything. Then the last verse in this section, this is not the last verse of the surah, it says, the 10th verse says, "Wasbir ala ma yaqulun." That is the first part, that is the fourth command, and the fifth one continues in the same ayah, "Wahjurhum hajran jamila." The first is bear patiently with what they say, and the second is avoid them with a becoming avoidance. Now this is an attitude for Rasulullah, and it is an attitude for everyone who does the work of Rasulullah, who is in Tabligh, who is on the forefront, or anyone else also representing as Islam. And when we say representing Islam, every Muslim is a representative of Islam. And therefore it says that two things. One is bear patiently with what they say. Again, patience here, just as a note, is not to sit in a corner and take a beating. It is perseverance for establishing the right. That is very important, that we bear patiently with what the enemies want to say. Rasulullah is one who himself said that what I have undergone, none of the prophets have undergone what I have undergone. So we know that he had to bear patiently, and this was an order by Allah, a command of Allah to be patient and distancing oneself from people. However, it says that in distancing people from people does not mean to have what it says, getting away from inviting them towards the truth. It does not mean abandoning people. Because there is going to be ill words. People are going to say every type of things towards you because they don't like what you say. And they are going to annoy you, Rasulullah is being told. And there is going to be an aggravation that will come from people because you are telling them of the truth, and it is moving them from out of their comfort zone, as we say it in our times, in our language. That one is comfortable in his comfort zone. So if you tell him to change, there is aggravation. Sometimes he reacts, and he reacts wrongly. So he says, be patient about this. And adopting patience is an extremely important aspect, specifically for Rasulullah, the Aimma alayhimus salam, and all those who are in the forefront of bringing about Islam and propagating Islam. And Allama explains this in a beautiful way, and he says, it's a proverbial way to say that a gardener who wishes to pick the flowers from a garden has to and must do so by taking care and showing perseverance around the thorns and pricks in the bush. So whatever comes, it's the flowers which should be your target and not what you go through in the issues that come with it. And when it says avoiding enemies in a beautiful way, it says that sometimes situations are such that Rasulullah has to avoid certain personalities and distance themselves because these people are simply destructive, and therefore he has to keep them away and distance himself from these people so that he is protected from their evil and dangers of the evil ones as well. By keeping a distance with these people who are negative, who are evil, and who are only destructive, Allah tells Rasulullah that you keep away from that. And that itself, he says, for those evil people is a lesson that these are people who are being avoided by Rasulullah. However, he says, and he emphasizes here, is that distancing oneself from the people must not be thought that there is a stoppage of the program of training. It does not mean that Rasulullah should stop inviting people or telling them to come. No, he should be general in this, and he should be inviting people and propagating his message of inviting towards Allah. However, Allah speaks about how to avoid it, how to avoid such people by saying, Hajran Jamila, meaning beautiful distancing. He is not belittling them. He is not chiding them, but he is beautifully distancing himself as well. Now, he says that what this means is that Rasulullah had that burning passion, and so should we have that burning passion or in the heart towards inviting people and making them successful as well towards Allah and propagating the truth. And this avoidance is in very specific cases and instances on how you avoid, not by fighting, but by walking away, by keeping a distance with such people who are only destructive. Otherwise, he says, Allama says, otherwise what is the point of inviting? Rasulullah had opposition from day one. So if he was to avoid people, then whom would he have given his message to? He had to invite the people despite the opposition. But there were certain who were hell-bent on destroying Islam. It is such people that have to be made distant with, not fight with at this stage. There is no issue of fighting here. And he says that such avoidance also does not go against the principles of jihad. He says, although there are certain mufassirin who say that this verse is abrogated by the verse of jihad, he says, no, that is not correct. He says, each has its own time and place. When you avoid somebody is not battling with somebody, or when you are avoiding somebody, it does not mean you are not struggling with what you are doing and persevering with what your aim is. What it means is here that each has its own place. You are not fighting with everyone, nor are you distancing yourself with everyone. Everything has its own place and has its own time. What this means is that Rasulullah is told, do not bring about apathy or being indifferent to people's opposition. Yes, there are times you may have to avoid them, but you are still have to invite them and bring them to the truth. One day they will realize. And you should focus towards the greater picture, which is to bring people towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Here he quotes a hadith from Allama Tabrasi in Majma'ul Bayan, in which he says, in this verse is the proof that it is incumbent upon the propagators of Islam and those who call on others towards religion to show patience in the face of difficulty, and they must deal with people in the best of etiquette and tolerance so that their words may be accepted quicker. People those who are the propagators of Islam have to have not only ilm, like it is said, they have to have the hilm also, which is tolerance and patience and bearing patiently. And here he concludes this part of the section and says that this is a comprehensive prescription given to Rasulullah. These 5 items are a comprehensive prescription, and all those who follow the path of Rasulullah. And we need to comprehend that these principles and commands, which are to seek help of Allah, the night worship and devotion at daybreak, the seedlings that must be watered with dhikr of Allah, and these be cultivated through sincerity, complete reliance, patience, and a beautiful form of avoidance of the opponents. You have to avoid and remove the weeds out of the garden to get the flowers. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant us the tawfiq to be able to understand the teachings of the Quran and the Ahlul-bayt alayhimus salam and implement them in our lives. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi at-tahirin. Rahmallahu man kara al-Fatiha.